Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast.
Glad to be diving into this one.
Yeah, because right now there is, a psychological glitch in your brain that is actively leaking your focus.
It really is.
And it's the exact same glitch, that keeps you watching a terrible movie until the bitter end just to see what happens.
That's right. Exactly.
And today we're going to show you how to take that precise psychological mechanism and, weaponize it, ethically, of course, to transform your business communication and completely overhaul your personal productivity.
Which is huge.
It is. If you're tuning in, this deep dive is custom tailored for you. You're a modern professional, you're navigating this incredibly noisy, fractured digital landscape, and you really need a strategic edge in business efficiency.
Yeah, and it's just a phenomenal premise to explore. We're pulling all of our insights today from this incredibly comprehensive article by Felix Römer.
It's great, Pete.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's published on smartkeys.org, and it's titled Open Loops, How Unfinished Tasks Sabotage Your Focus and How to Fix It. And what Römer does so brilliantly here is he takes the concept of productivity out of that tired realm of, basic time management.
Yeah, the usual hacks.
Exactly. And instead, he forces us to look at it through the lens of narrative design and the underlying psychology of human attention.
Okay, let's unpack this right away. Because having an open loop, it sounds a lot like having, 40 browser tabs open in your brain.
That is the perfect analogy.
Right. And they're all playing different audio, and you have absolutely no idea which one is blasting the music.
It's exhausting.
It is just physically exhausting. But before we get into the high-level business tactics or, how blockbuster filmmakers use this, we really need a baseline.
Sure.
What is an open loop, actually, in a hard psychological sense? What is happening in the brain?
So at its absolute core, an open loop is simply a mental question waiting for an answer.
Okay.
That's it. You notice a half-finished task on your desk, or you read a headline that teases some secret piece of information, and your mind essentially opens a neurological file folder.
Just pop. It's open.
Pop. And here's the kicker. The brain categorically refuses to close that folder until the missing information is provided.
Wow.
Yeah, unfinished tasks create this lingering low-grade tension. And that tension literally consumes your mental energy because our brains, they're pattern recognition machines.
They want the pattern finished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They inherently crave closure. They want to finish the sequence.
Yeah.
And when they can't, it takes up working memory. It's basically the attention economy operating inside your own head.
So the brain treats that unresolved item like a physical magnetic pull.
It really does.
It's an itch that demands to be scratched. I can see how, as a business owner or a marketer, understanding how to manufacture that tension is incredibly powerful.
Oh, massive.
It could build incredible momentum for a campaign. But if you abuse it, it seems like it could completely destroy professional trust.
And that's exactly the line you have to walk. When you intentionally create an open loop in your writing, your marketing, or even your team communication, you're creating what Römer calls a slippery slope of attention.
A slippery slope?
Right. Your brain treats attention like physical momentum. So when a loop opens, the brain leans forward. Every subsequent sentence, every small action nudges a reader or a client or an employee a little bit further down that slope.
Just pulling them along.
Exactly. You're pulling them forward using the gravitational force of their own natural curiosity. But, and this is the absolute non-negotiable rule from the source text, the logic and the intensity of the payoff must perfectly match the promise of the setup.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this right out of the gate.
Sure, go for it.
If we're deliberately withholding information from our audience just to create tension and, pull them down a slippery slope,
Yeah.
isn't this just the psychological justification for toxic clickbait? Aren't we essentially just manipulating people into paying attention to us?
That is the exact trap. And what's fascinating here is understanding the precise mechanism of why clickbait feels so terrible versus why an ethical loop feels engaging.
Right, because there is a difference.
A huge difference.
Okay.
It isn't just about disappointment. It's an actual neurological reaction. Think about it this way. Cheap clickbait is like writing a check.
Yeah.
Your content absolutely cannot cash.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so the headline, the open loop, creates a massive dopamine spike of anticipation in the reader's brain.
They're excited.
Right. But when they click and the content doesn't deliver that promised value, the brain registers it as a neurological deficit. Yeah, it manifests instantly as annoyance and distrust.
Right, so QuickPay promises you like the secret to eternal youth, and the article is just a generic ad for moisturizing lotion. So
Exactly.
dopamine just crashes.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Mismatched intensity breaks trust immediately and honestly, permanently.
Yeah, you don't click again.
Never. Yeah. If you hype a massive world-changing reveal in your email subject line, and the body of the email is just a minor software patch update, you've broken the logic of the loop.
The reader just feels exploited.
Yeah. So to build trust, Römer provides this fantastic structural rule of thumb. You need to close a microloop within 1 to 3 paragraphs.
1 to 3 paragraphs, that's fast.
It is fast. You have to constantly calibrate your communication by asking yourself a 2-part question.
Which is?
What did I promise, and did I deliver it clearly? An ethical loop still guides the user's journey, but it ensures they actually get the keys to the car they were promised.
Because it's not just about getting them to click.
Never. It's never just about who arrives at your content. It is entirely about who stays.
That makes the distinction incredibly clear. So the fastest way to earn someone's attention is to demonstrate that you deeply respect it by paying off the tension quickly.
Exactly. You scratch the itch.
Okay, so if I'm a business owner, this all sounds great in a psychological vacuum. But if I'm sitting down to build a landing page today, or map out a Q4 marketing strategy, how do I actually deploy these loops without sounding like a sleazy used car salesman?
Well, the source material provides a very clear, actionable taxonomy for exactly this. Römer outlines 6 distinct types of open loops.
6 types, okay.
Yeah, but they aren't just a list of tricks. They're gears in an engine that you shift depending on what level of commitment you're asking for. Let's actually build a hypothetical campaign to see how they interlock.
Let's do it. I want to see how the macro and the micro work together here.
Perfect. So we always start at the macro level with what the article calls project loops.
The big ones.
Right. These are your massive, long-running questions that span a large body of work or an entire quarter. You only close a project loop when the entire initiative culminates, like the day you finally launch a new product or release a massive industry report.
It's the umbrella over everything else. But I obviously can't sustain a customer's absolute breathless attention for an entire quarter just by saying, something is coming.
Oh, absolutely not. They tune out in a week. That's where you step down into series loops.
Series loops.
Yeah, these are for multi-part themes. Imagine you're running a 4-week email sequence leading up to that product launch we just talked about.
Okay, I'm with you.
You open week 1 with a big, compelling why now narrative arc. You expose a major problem in the industry, but you intentionally don't provide your concrete solution until the final email of the sequence.
Wait, why does that work, though? Why wouldn't they just unsubscribe if I don't give them the answer immediately? I'd be so annoyed.
Because a well-crafted series loop doesn't agitate. It creates anticipation. It builds a habit of returning.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when you use a PS at the bottom of an email that says, by the way, on Thursday I'm going to share the exact framework we used to solve this, you are leaving a very low-stakes psychological itch in the reader's brain.
And the brain likes that.
It does. When Thursday rolls around and they see your name in their inbox, their brain subconsciously remembers that itch and wants to scratch it.
That makes total sense.
Right. It organically boosts your open rates without overselling the current email.
Okay, so the project loop is the destination, the series loop is the map. Now we're down into the actual trenches, like the copy on the page.
Yes. And this is where we shift to story loops and segment loops.
Let's break those down.
So a story loop is when you open a piece of content, like a blog post or a video script, with a compelling anecdote or question, and you purposefully leave the resolution for the very end.
To keep them hooked.
Right. It tightens the entire narrative.
Yeah.
But inside that larger story, you deploy segment loops.
Which are what?
These are mini tensions planted inside specific sections of the text to keep the reader moving.
Give me an example of how a segment loop works mechanically on a landing page. Because I see a lot of pages that just feel like, huge walls of text.
Oh, totally. If you're running ads to a landing page, you have to realize the user is highly skeptical.
Very.
So a segment loop poses a highly focused question right at the top of a section. You stop their scrolling with a bold phrase that addresses their biggest pain point. You promise a clear benefit. But then you have to reward them fast so they feel valued. You guide them through a brief explanation, and you explicitly answer that specific question before you dare move on to your next main point.
Because if you don't, you break the trust.
Exactly. Every time you remove a customer objection, you close a segment loop.
It's a series of micro-agreements.
That's a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep the pacing relentless, you use the final 2 types, moment loops and but loops.
Okay, moment loops first.
Moment loops are tiny, almost invisible cues. They're the signposts, the slight pauses, the teased ideas that simply nudge the reader to read the very next sentence.
Okay, and the but loop. Because I found this one fascinating reading the article, it just seems so deceptively simple.
It really is. The but loop is the single word pivot. Using words like but, however, or yet is incredibly powerful because it acts as a hard reset for the brain's attention.
A hard reset.
Yeah, when a reader sees the word but, it signals an immediate turn in the narrative. It promises a fresh case, a twist, or a contradiction that you deliver on instantly. It just totally re-engages a wandering mind.
Let's apply this directly to an SEO strategy because the article specifically talks about using internal links on a website as ethical loops.
Yes, this is a great application.
How does a hyperlink function as a psychological loop?
Well, think about the behavior you want. You want high dwell time on your site because search engines interpret that as your site being a highly useful, authoritative resource.
Right.
An ethical internal link teases a deeper context. So you might be writing about marketing and you casually mention, this strategy relies heavily on understanding the cognitive load of your reader. And you hyperlink the phrase cognitive load.
So you've opened a loop. You've introduced a concept they might not fully grasp, creating that tiny bit of tension.
Right. And if they click it, they open a new tab to read that specific article. But here's the critical caveat that goes right back to our clickbait discussion.
You have to deliver.
Exactly. You have to meticulously plan your link targets. The page you link to must immediately and explicitly answer the specific concept you teased. If they click cognitive load and get taken to your generic homepage, you've broken the trust.
They'll just bounce immediately.
100%.
Let me challenge the mechanics of this, though.
Go for it.
If I'm writing all of my company's outward communication and I keep opening and closing these loops, if I keep using tease phrases, writing, here's the twist, or, but wait, there's more, over and over, and won't my audience catch on?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Won't they just get annoyed by the repetitive algorithmic structure of it all?
It is a highly valid concern, and Römer specifically addresses this in the article's FAQ. The key takeaway is that thoughtful repetition links ideas, but heavy-handed repetition destroys engagement.
Too much of a good thing.
Right. If you overuse verbal tease phrases, your copy just feels stale. Your keyword density for these transitional hooks should stay completely natural, aiming for under 2%.
Okay, under 2%.
If you saturate the text, the brain stops seeing them as intriguing loops and starts seeing them as spam.
So how do you physically guide a reader down the page without repeating the same verbal tricks? How do you maintain the momentum if you can't use the words?
You rely on visual cues. This is where formatting becomes a psychological tool.
Formatting, like bold text.
Exactly. Colons, bullet points, numbered lists, bolded text. These act as natural eye paths. They are, in themselves, visual open loops.
Wait, how does a bullet point act as a loop?
Because of what it represents to the scanning brain. When a reader sees a bulleted list approaching in the text, it instantly lowers their scanning friction.
Oh, because they know it's going to be easy to read.
Exactly. The visual structure makes a silent promise. Here is a quick, highly organized, easily digestible payoff.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it highlights the question visually and directs their attention straight to the answer without you needing to write, and here are the 3 reasons why. The formatting itself becomes the mechanism for momentum.
You're letting the white space on the page do the psychological heavy lifting.
Precisely.
Okay, we've spent the last, 10 minutes figuring out how to ethically hack our customers' attention. We're mastering the slippery slope. We're building trust. We're using formatting to our advantage.
We are.
But we need to take a deep breath and flip the mirror here.
Let's do it.
What happens when the modern business landscape forces all of these open loops onto us?
Oh, yes.
Because if I look at my email inbox, my Slack channels, or my project management board right now, it is an absolute graveyard of open loops. Everyone else is using these tactics on me.
It's true, and this is where Römer's framework becomes incredibly holistic. It bridges the gap between external communication and internal personal productivity.
Right.
Remember what we established at the beginning. Your brain treats unresolved items as a mental itch that demands working memory.
The browser tabs.
The browser tabs. If that tension consumes mental energy, then a cluttered inbox or a scattered project board is not just an organizational problem. It is literally draining your biological willpower.
It's the background app draining the battery on your phone.
That's it?
You don't even realize it's running, but suddenly you're at 10% by noon.
Yep, and you're exhausted. So to combat this, the article outlines a personal productivity framework, what it calls a simple to-do list method.
Okay, yeah.
It sounds basic on the surface. You capture every single unfinished item, every loose question, and put it into one single centralized list.
Got it.
Then you decide a clear next action for each one. Finally, you schedule 2 short, daily focus blocks specifically dedicated to closing those small tasks.
Okay, so it's capture, decide, schedule.
Right. But if we connect this to the deeper psychological mechanisms we've been discussing, we see that this is not just a basic time management hack.
It's deeper than that.
Like a profound cognitive load strategy. When you take a dangling task, an unanswered email, a vague request from a client, and you decide its precise next step, you are doing something critical. You are naming the loop.
Naming the loop. What do you mean by that?
You're identifying the exact question that's driving your subconscious distraction. Respond to client is not a named loop.
No, that's just a source of anxiety.
Exactly, it's too vague. The brain doesn't know how to close it. Email John the Q3 budget PDF, however, is a named loop.
Ah, I see the difference.
By defining it, taking it out of your working memory, and putting it into a trusted external system, you drastically reduce your background cortisol and stress.
Because the brain knows it's being handled.
Exactly. And by utilizing those short daily focus blocks to close those mini tensions quickly, you're manufacturing a sense of completion.
Which gives you the dopamine hit.
Yes. That completion releases dopamine, which frees up your willpower and your concentration for high-value, deep work later in the day.
Okay, but let's test that logic against reality for a second.
Sure.
What does this mean for my massive ongoing projects? It sounds fantastic to say, just close the loop in a short 20-minute focus block. But I can't close a major multi-department software initiative in 20 minutes.
No, you can't.
The scale of my actual work just doesn't match the strategy you're outlining.
And that is the exact point where most professionals burn out. The answer requires us to go right back to the taxonomy of loops we discussed for marketing.
Okay, back to the taxonomy.
When you stare at a massive project and feel paralysis, you're making a categorical error. You're trying to treat a macro project loop as if it were a micro moment loop.
I'm trying to swallow the whole elephant at once.
Precisely. You cannot close a macro project loop in one sitting. Your brain looks at the scale of the unresolved tension and simply refuses to engage.
It just shuts down.
It does. What you have to do is turn your marketing strategy inward. You have to break that massive project loop down into its constituent segment loops and moment loops for yourself.
So, practically speaking, I don't sit down at my desk and tell myself to finish the Q3 initiative.
Never. You isolate one tiny hyper-specific loop within it. You name the exact micro question that is holding up progress at this very second.
Like, what is the headline for page 2?
Exactly. What is the headline for page 2? You define the one small action that answers that specific question, and you execute that immediately.
Oh, wow. It's exactly like writing the landing page copy we talked about earlier.
It is the exact same mechanism.
You don't try to overcome every single customer objection in one massive rambling sentence.
Nope.
You sequence the micro phrases, you remove one objection per line, earning trust with each step.
And for your own internal productivity, you remove one micro blocker per focus session, earning your own brain's trust.
Earning your brain's trust, that is brilliant.
It works. The mantra is capture, decide, schedule, repeat. Small, faithful closures free up your attention and generate real, undeniable momentum.
You're essentially building a slippery slope of productivity for your own brain.
That's exactly it. You're hacking your own dopamine to keep yourself moving forward.
That is an incredibly elegant way to frame it. A tidy end to one question frees the mental energy required for the next good idea.
It really does.
It's a perfectly symmetrical concept when you view it from both sides. How we deliberately communicate outward to capture attention, and how we ruthlessly process inward to protect our own.
It truly is. And I think it leaves us with a deeply provocative, broader implication, especially for those listening who are currently in management, leadership, or executive roles.
Oh, let's hear it.
If we accept that unfinished tasks and poorly defined open loops are actively stealing your mental energy and sapping your daily focus, you have to apply that same empathy to your team.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Look at how you delegate. What if the future of effective leadership isn't about micromanaging your employees' time, but actively managing their cognitive tension?
That's a huge shift.
What if your primary job is to help them close the open loops you've assigned to them by giving clearer instructions, naming the loops properly, and removing bottlenecks so they don't burn out under the invisible weight of 100 unclosed folders.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
Hmm,
Are you managing time on a clock, or are you managing the cognitive tension of your workforce? That is something every leader needs to sit with today.
absolutely.
Listeners, think about those 40 browser tabs we talked about earlier in our deep dive. The noise, the overlapping audio, the exhaustion.
It's real.
Your goal today isn't to magically close all 40 tabs at once. That's a project loop, and it will only lead to paralysis. Your goal today is to find just one tab, find the exact audio that's playing, name the loop, and finally hit pause.
Just hit pause.
Thank you for tuning in to the Smart Keys podcast. We highly recommend you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a strategy session that gives you this kind of professional edge.
Definitely subscribe.
And please, go read Felix Römer's full article. The concepts we unpacked today are just the tip of the iceberg, and you can find the link to the original piece right in the show notes. Take control of your attention, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.